Describe how to build the old Airfix Vulcan model kit in 1/72 scale. First, something about the Vulcan history. The AV company Vulcan was a jet-powered strategic bomber to meet a British Air Ministry specification. The design featured a huge delta wing and had a crew of 2 pilots and 3 navigators/system operators. The first prototype flew August 1952. The Vulcan would become part of the Strategic V-Force nuclear deterrent force along with the Vickers Valiant and Handley Page Victor. During the Cold War, the nuclear bombs were to be carried in a huge bomb bay with constantly a few aircraft ready at full alert to fly the mission at high altitude. The B-2 version had another larger wing with different planform and larger span, new systems and several other changes like bigger intakes for the Olympus 201 and later the 301 engine. First flight was in March 1959 and it entered Royal Air Force service in 1960 at Airfix released in 1983 a 1/72 scale Vulcan B-2 kit. At that time, it was an impressive injection molded kit and this kit appeared in various boxes over the years. Still, an old Airfix Vulcan kit was available in my stash and it was decided to build it. My Vulcan kit was to be made for the early overall white Vulcan B-2 coated Royal Air Force XM570 as it first appeared. It was flown by Royal Air Force No. 27 Squadron. This Vulcan was not fitted with blue steel and it had the smaller early Olympus 201 engines. The old Airfix kit is for a Vulcan B-2 with the later Olympus 301 jet exhausts and the wide air intakes. But I had an aftermarket resin set for the Olympus 201 engine jet exhausts that will be installed. I could not see the brand of this resin set unfortunately. This modeling report describes how this Vulcan model was built. The kit has about 110 parts in hard plastic and a few transparent parts. The vertical tail has the electronic countermeasures fairing and on the nose the red steer terrain following radars. The instructions are unclear with very tiny decal drawings and need careful studying. Please note the options with different Vulcans for the different scheme. A better effect in scale is to rescribe these using a flexible ruler and using the raised lines as guide. Then sand all raised lines to get flat surfaces. Do this before starting assembly. The 2 small crew windows aft of the cockpit are strangely forgotten. The kit cockpit and crew interior is simplified with only 2 pilots with supposedly Martin Baker Mark III ejection seats. A kit floor is provided but no detail parts for any of the 3 rear crew stations. But this is no issue as hardly anything is visible through the small windows. All was kept as per kit. I wanted to set the lower crew entry hatch open. A sort of boxed-in interior was added from scrap with thin card. During assembly you will find that the intakes and trunking need considerable amounts of putty and sanding to get a smooth result. For the early Vulcan B-2A with blue steel the fairings on the fin top should be carved off. The nose tank boom was not installed and red steer knob should be removed and all sanded smooth. The rather crude kit exhaust openings are for the later Olympus 301 engines. It is better to refine these and close up the jet openings inside. Note that first B-2 Vulcans had the Olympus 201 engines with different jet exhausts. A few B-2 aircraft also apparently had the narrow intakes. So check the particular Vulcan number and time period desired if a conversion here is needed. Make aftermarket resin set for the old Olympus 201 jets. The wing fuselage joints will leave a step, so remove a bit from the kit wing locating tabs. This will give a better joint though putty and sanding was still needed. The picked Vulcan coated XM570 initially had the old Olympus 201 jets and the wide air intakes. So the resin jet exhaust set was set with superglue and putty was needed with sanding. The cockpit seats were installed and some harnesses suggested with paint. Almost nothing will be seen later on. Note that all is painted black on the insides. Leave landing gear installment for later stages after painting to avoid breaking the landing gear. The overall sanded model got a base gray primer coat with the airbrush to check for any flaws. I used acrylic paint Revol Aqua 75 gray as primer. Any missing or inconsistent panel lines were again rescribed. After all looked fine, the overall gloss white was airbrushed as were the black and mid-brown areas. The model was polished with polishing paste and cleaned up under the water tap. Later service in Vulcans got 2 rows of what seemed to be reinforcement lugs. They were made from thin plastic strip and hand-painted with. Between the engine fairing, on the rear upper wing 5 vortex generators were added as well. Airbrushed were a few coats of Johnson Pledge acrylic varnish, also known as Johnson Future, before any decalling was to be attempted. This will avoid any decal silvering that will spoil model appearance. Decalling was now done. The decals came from the aftermarket model decal set 70. The stenciling came from the Airfix kit. Note that the smaller stencils are different between white and camouflaged Vulcans. The remaining parts like the landing gears were installed. The dominant gear strut's color is black with metal wheel hubs. It takes a lot of alignment. Also, the pitot tubes were refined. On this model, the crew door was set open and not the kit ladder but a fine-etched metal crew entry ladder installed from flight path. XM570 of Royal Air Force No. 27 Squadron is based at Scampton in 1962 is now in the model collection. More details can be found at my website aircraftinplastic.com.